Hello everyone, enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe and share your thoughts in comments while you watch. The village of Yumyuk was a place of vibrant colors, sounds, and traditions. Nestled in the heart of the Nigerian countryside, it was home to sprawling fields, bustling marketplaces, and a close-knit community that thrived on shared joys and sorrows. It was in this village that Martha's life began, filled with laughter and the warm embrace of her mother, Ifeoma. Ifeoma was known for her kindness and strength, a woman who balanced the weight of motherhood and the challenges of life with grace. But all that changed when Martha turned 13. Her mother fell ill with a mysterious fever that no herbs or prayers could cure. Despite the efforts of the village herbalist and the fervent prayers of neighbors, Ifeoma passed away, leaving behind a void that no one could fill. Martha's world crumbled as she clung to her father, Nnamdi, for solace, but even he was a shadow of the man he once was. Grief consumed him, and in his desperation, he made a decision that would forever alter Martha's life. Nnamdi remarried within a year, hoping to provide Martha with a maternal figure and restore stability to their home. Ada, his new wife, was a woman of striking beauty but a heart that harbored selfish ambitions. She arrived with her teenage daughter, Chioma, a spirited girl with an air of entitlement. At first, Martha tried to welcome them with an open heart, hopeful that they could become a family. But it didn't take long for Ada's true colors to emerge. Ada treated Martha as an outsider, a reminder of Ifeoma's presence in the house. While Chioma was showered with gifts, affection, and freedom, Martha was burdened with chores. From dawn until dusk, she scrubbed floors, fetched water from the village stream, and prepared meals, her hands roughened by labor. The love and warmth she once knew were replaced by cold commands and harsh words. Chioma, taking cues from her mother, treated Martha as little more than a servant. She flaunted her privileges, refusing to lift a finger around the house. Her laughter echoed through the walls as she enjoyed the life of ease Ada had promised her. Meanwhile, Martha bore her resentment in silence, clinging to memories of her mother and the belief that one day, things would change. The bond that never was. Growing up together, Martha and Chioma were like two sides of a coin. They lived under the same roof, attended the same village school, and shared meals at the same table, but their worlds couldn't have been more different. Chioma's life was a cascade of opportunities and indulgences. She was always dressed in the finest clothes Ada could afford, her hair neatly braided and adorned with beads. Martha, on the other hand, wore hand-me-downs, her once glowing skin now dull from endless work under the sun. At school, Martha excelled in her studies, her sharp mind earning her praise from teachers. But her achievements were overlooked at home, where Ada's sole focus was on Chioma's social standing. Chioma basked in the attention, though she showed little interest in academics. Instead, she spent her time gossiping with friends, practicing the latest dances, and dreaming of a life of luxury. Despite their proximity, there was no real bond between the girls. Martha longed for the sisterly connection she had read about in storybooks, but Chioma saw her only as a tool to lighten her workload. Their shared experiences were limited to moments when Chioma ordered Martha around, demanding that she clean her room, wash her clothes, or run errands for her. A day in Martha's life. Martha's days began before the rooster crowed. She would rise from her small mat in the corner of the kitchen, careful not to wake anyone. Her chores were endless, sweeping the compound, fetching water, and preparing breakfast. By the time the sun rose, she would be drenched in sweat, her arms aching from the effort. One particularly hot afternoon, as Martha scrubbed the veranda, Chioma lounged in the shade, sipping palm wine and laughing with friends. "Martha," she called, her voice sharp. "You missed a spot. Do it again." Martha's hands trembled with anger, but she bit her tongue. She had learned long ago that arguing only led to more punishment. Instead, she focused on the scrubbing, letting her frustration bubble beneath the surface. Her stepmother Ada was no better. If Martha faltered in her duties, even for a moment, Ada's voice would ring out with scorn. "Lazy girl! Is this how you honor your mother's memory? No wonder you're worthless." Those words cut deep, but Martha held onto the image of her mother's smile, drawing strength from the love that once filled her life. dreams of freedom. At night, when the house was silent, Martha would lie awake, staring at the rafters of the kitchen ceiling. She dreamed of escaping the suffocating life she led, of finding a place where she could be free. Sometimes, she imagined herself as a teacher, standing in front of a classroom and inspiring young minds. Other times, she pictured herself traveling the world, leaving Yumyuk and its painful memories far behind. But those dreams felt distant, almost unattainable. For now, she was trapped, her life dictated by Ada's whims and Chioma's cruelty. Still, Martha refused to let despair consume her. She knew that one day her circumstances would change. One day, she would rise above the shadows of her loss and find the happiness she deserved. The chapter ends with Ada announcing plans for a grand dinner party in Chioma's honor. "It will be the event of the year," Ada declared, her eyes gleaming with excitement. For Martha, it was yet another reminder of her place in the household. Little did she know that the upcoming event would mark the beginning of a profound shift in her life. The weeks leading up to Chioma's dinner party were filled with chaos and excitement. Ada spared no expense in ensuring that the event would be the talk of the village. She hired the best caterers, musicians, and decorators. The compound was cleaned and adorned with vibrant fabrics, strings of fairy lights, and colorful flowers. Martha, of course, bore the brunt of the preparation. She spent her days scrubbing floors, polishing furniture, and running errands for Ada and Chioma. By the time the day of the party arrived, her hands were blistered, and her body ached from exhaustion. "Martha, hurry up!" Ada barked as Martha set the final trays of food on the long dining table. "Stop dragging your feet like a lazy goat." "Yes, Ma," Martha replied, her voice low. Chioma swept into the room, her movements as dramatic as her bright yellow lace dress. "Martha," she said, her tone dripping with disdain, "make sure my shoes are spotless. And don't forget to carry my handbag at the party. I don't want to see you standing around doing nothing." "Yes, Oma," Martha muttered, her fists clenching at her sides. The night of the party. By evening, the compound was alive with music, laughter, and the hum of conversations. Guests arrived dressed in their finest traditional attire, their smiles lighting up the night. Ada played the perfect hostess, gliding from group to group with a wide smile plastered on her face. Chioma basked in the attention, her every move calculated to draw admiration. Martha, in contrast, sat in the shadows, holding Chioma's handbag and other belongings. Her dress, a faded hand-me-down from Chioma, hung loosely on her slender frame. She felt invisible amidst the crowd, a mere shadow of the person she wished to be. As the evening wore on, Martha watched Chioma laughing and chatting with her friends, jealousy and sadness welling up inside her. She longed for just a sliver of the joy and freedom Chioma took for granted. "Excuse me," a deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Startled, Martha looked up to see a young man standing before her. He was tall, with smooth brown skin and sharp features. His luxurious suit shimmered under the glow of the fairy lights, and his smile was warm and inviting. "Hello," he said, his voice calm yet confident. Martha blinked, unsure how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her at such gatherings, let alone someone so handsome. "May I sit here?" he asked, motioning to the bench beside her. "Yes, of course," Martha stammered, shifting slightly to make room. The man sat down, studying her with genuine interest. "I'm Dave," he said, extending a hand. "And you are?" "Martha," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Nice to meet you, Martha," Dave said with a smile. "You don't seem to be enjoying the party much." Martha hesitated, unsure how to explain her situation. "I'm just here to help Chioma," she finally said, lowering her gaze. Dave tilted his head, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Help Chioma? From the way you're sitting here alone, it seems like she's the one who should be helping you." Martha's lips curved into a small, sad smile. "It's just how things are." Dave looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to decipher her words. "Well," he said eventually, "I hope things change for you soon." Before Martha could respond, Chioma's voice rang out across the courtyard. "Martha, where are you?" "I need my lipstick." Martha jumped to her feet, clutching Chioma's handbag. "I have to go," she murmured, turning away. "Martha," Dave called softly. She paused and glanced back at him. "I'll see you again," he said, his voice firm. Martha nodded, unsure what to make of his words, and hurried off to tend to Chioma. The day after. The morning after the party, Martha resumed her usual chores, pushing the events of the previous night to the back of her mind. She didn't dare entertain the idea that someone like Dave would seek her out again. As she swept the compound, a knock sounded at the front door. Wiping her hands on her apron, she went to answer it. When she opened the door, she froze. Standing there, with the same confident smile from the night before, was Dave. "Good morning, Martha," he said cheerfully. "May I come in?" Martha stared at him, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to find words. "What's going on?" Ada's voice called from inside the house. She appeared moments later, her expression shifting to one of pleasant surprise when she saw Dave. "Oh, a visitor. Please come in." Dave stepped inside, his eyes briefly meeting Martha's before turning to Ada. "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Dave. I met Martha last night at the party." Ada's smile faltered for a split second before she quickly recovered. "Ah, yes, Martha," she said, her tone forced. "What brings you here, Mr. Dave?" Dave straightened, his expression serious. "I won't waste your time. I came to ask for Martha's hand in marriage." The room fell silent. Martha's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to process his words. Ada and Chioma exchanged a look of disbelief before plastering fake smiles on their faces. "Marriage?" Ada said, feigning delight. "That's quite unexpected. But of course, we're honored." Chioma's jaw tightened, but she said nothing, her eyes flashing with jealousy. Dave nodded. "I hope to earn your blessing. Martha is a remarkable woman, and I believe we could build a beautiful future together." Ada forced a laugh, her mind racing with plans to thwart the union. "Of course, we'll need to discuss this further. But we're very happy for you both." Dave stayed for a while, chatting with Ada and glancing occasionally at Martha, who remained silent. When he finally left, Ada dragged Chioma into her room. "This cannot happen," Ada hissed. "That man is wealthy and influential. He's meant for you, not Martha." Chioma's eyes narrowed. "So what do we do?" Ada's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Leave that to me." The house was quieter than usual, yet an air of tension lingered like an unspoken threat. Ada's mind worked overtime, devising a way to sabotage Martha's happiness without raising suspicion. She couldn't stomach the idea of Martha, the girl she had mistreated for years, stepping into a life of luxury with a man as wealthy and charming as Dave. To Ada, Dave was Chioma's rightful prize, not Martha's. Chioma was equally bitter. She paced the length of her room, her jealousy bubbling to the surface. "Mummy," she finally said, stopping in front of Ada, "we can't just sit here and let this happen. Dave is mine." Ada raised a hand to silence her. "Patience, my daughter. Martha will never marry Dave. I'll make sure of it." As Chioma nodded in agreement, Ada's plan began to take form. A cruel, calculated move that would scar Martha in more ways than one. The boiling plot. 2 mornings later, the house was unusually quiet. Ada had woken up early, much earlier than Martha, and busied herself in the kitchen. She lit the firewood and placed a large pot of water on the stove. As the water began to boil, Ada's eyes gleamed with malevolence. Martha, exhausted from a late night of cleaning, woke to the smell of burning firewood. She quickly tied her headscarf and made her way to the kitchen, expecting another long day of chores. She pushed the kitchen door open and greeted Ada. "Good morning, Ma." Ada turned to her with a forced smile. "Morning, Martha. You're late. Start cleaning the counters while I finish here." Martha nodded and began scrubbing the wooden countertop. Her back was turned to Ada, who slowly picked up the pot of boiling water. With calculated steps, she crept closer to Martha. Without warning, Ada tipped the pot, pouring the scalding water over Martha's back. A blood-curdling scream filled the kitchen as Martha collapsed to the floor, clutching her burning skin. The pain was excruciating, her cries echoing through the compound. Chioma ran into the kitchen, feigning shock. "What happened, Mummy?" She tripped, Ada said coolly, her face devoid of emotion. Clumsy girl. A neighbor's intervention. Martha's cries reached the ears of Mama Nkechi, the elderly woman who lived next door. Known for her nosy but caring nature, Mama Nkechi rushed to the house and banged on the door. Open this door. What's going on in there? She demanded. Chioma tried to block the entrance, her smile tight. It's nothing, Mama Nkechi. Just a little accident. But Mama Nkechi pushed past her, determined to find the source of the commotion. Her eyes widened when she saw Martha lying on the kitchen floor, her skin red and peeling from the burns. Jesus Christ! What have you done to this girl? She cried. She tripped and fell into the pot, Ada said, her tone defensive. Mama Nkechi wasn't convinced. And you just stood there? You wicked woman. Ignoring Ada's protests, Mama Nkechi called for help. Within minutes, 2 young men from the neighborhood arrived and carried Martha to the village clinic. Dave learns the truth. Dave was on his way to visit Martha when he spotted Mama Nkechi walking along the dirt road. Her face was lined with worry, and her steps were hurried. Good morning, Mama Nkechi, Dave called out, stopping his car beside her. Is everything okay? Mama Nkechi shook her head, her voice trembling. No, my son. Martha has been hurt. Badly. I'm on my way to the clinic now. Dave's heart sank. What happened? That stepmother of hers poured boiling water on her. She claims it was an accident, but I don't believe her. Anger flashed across Dave's face. Get in, Mama. Let's go to the clinic. At the clinic, Dave found Martha lying on a thin hospital bed, her body wrapped in bandages. Her eyes lit up with recognition when she saw him, but tears soon followed as she turned her face away, ashamed of her condition. Dave sat beside her, gently taking her hand. Martha, he said softly, I'm so sorry this happened to you. But I promise, no one will hurt you again. Martha couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the kindness in his voice. For the first time in years, she felt truly protected. Justice takes its course. Over the next 2 weeks, Dave visited Martha daily. He brought her food, gifts, and words of encouragement, ensuring she knew she wasn't alone. As she healed, he began working on a plan to ensure her safety. One evening, after leaving the clinic, Dave went to the local police station. He filed a formal complaint against Ada and Chioma, providing a detailed account of their mistreatment of Martha. He also included testimonies from Mama Nkechi and other neighbors who had witnessed Ada's cruelty over the years. 2 days after Martha was discharged from the clinic, Dave arrived at her house with 2 police officers. Ada and Chioma were caught off guard as the officers read out the charges against them. What is this nonsense? Ada spat, her confidence faltering as the officers placed handcuffs on her wrists. Mummy, do something. Chioma cried, tears streaming down her face. But Ada was powerless. The officers escorted them to the station, leaving Martha and Dave standing in the now empty compound. You're free now, Dave said, turning to Martha. They can't hurt you anymore. Martha nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her burdens lift. The days following Ada and Chioma's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions for Martha. While a part of her felt relief and a newfound sense of freedom, another part grappled with years of pain and betrayal. The scars on her back were a painful reminder of everything she had endured, but with Dave by her side, she felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The trial begins. The small village courtroom was packed on the day of Ada and Chioma's trial. News of the incident had spread like wildfire, and everyone was eager to witness justice being served. Some villagers came out of curiosity, while others came to support Martha, who had silently endured Ada's cruelty for years. Martha sat beside Dave, her head held high despite the whispers and stares from the crowd. Dave squeezed her hand gently, offering her silent reassurance. The judge, an elderly man with a stern demeanor, entered the courtroom and called the session to order. The charges against Ada and Chioma were read aloud: child abuse, assault, and attempted grievous harm. Ada, dressed in a simple wrapper and blouse, maintained a defiant expression. Chioma, on the other hand, looked visibly shaken, her eyes darting nervously around the room. The evidence unfolds. The prosecution presented a strong case against Ada and Chioma, calling several witnesses to testify. Mama Nkechi was the first to take the stand. Her testimony was heartfelt and detailed, painting a vivid picture of the years of abuse Martha had endured. "I have lived next to this family for years," Mama Nkechi said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I have seen how Ada and Chioma treated that poor girl like a slave. The day she was burned, I saw the wickedness in Ada's eyes. It was no accident." Other neighbors also came forward, corroborating Mama Nkechi's account. They spoke of Martha's endless chores, the verbal abuse she faced, and Chioma's entitled behavior. The final piece of evidence was the medical report from the clinic, which detailed the severity of Martha's burns and confirmed that the injuries were consistent with deliberate harm. When it was Ada's turn to testify, she maintained her innocence. "It was an accident," she insisted, her voice firm. "Martha was clumsy and knocked over the pot herself." Chioma, however, crumbled under pressure during cross-examination. When asked if she had ever mistreated Martha, her stammering and inconsistent answers revealed the truth. The verdict. After hours of deliberation, the judge delivered his verdict. "Ada," he said, his voice echoing through the silent courtroom, "you have shown no remorse for your actions and have tried to manipulate this court with lies. You are hereby sentenced to 7 years in prison for child abuse and assault." Gasps filled the room as Ada's face twisted in rage. "Chioma," the judge continued, "though your actions were less severe, your complicity in the abuse of your stepsister cannot be ignored. You are sentenced to 3 years in prison." Chioma burst into tears, wailing as the officers escorted her and her mother out of the courtroom. Martha exhaled deeply, the weight of years of torment finally lifting from her shoulders. A fresh start. With Ada and Chioma out of the picture, the house that had once been a place of pain and suffering became a space of peace. Dave helped Martha move her belongings to a small but cozy apartment in town. "You deserve a fresh start," he told her as they unpacked her things. Martha was overwhelmed by his kindness. "Dave," she said softly, "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done." He turned to her, his eyes filled with warmth. "You don't have to thank me, Martha. I care about you. I just want to see you happy." Proposal to remember. A week after the trial, Dave invited Martha to dinner at a quiet, upscale restaurant in the city. Martha was nervous, having never been to such a place before, but Dave reassured her with his usual charm. As they dined, he spoke about his dreams and how he envisioned a life filled with love and partnership. Martha listened intently, her heart swelling with emotions she had never felt before. After dessert, Dave stood up and walked around the table. He knelt before Martha, pulling out a small velvet box from his pocket. "Martha," he began, his voice steady, "I've watched you endure so much with strength and grace. You've shown me what resilience truly means. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Martha's face as she nodded. "Dave, I will." The other diners clapped and cheered as Dave slipped the ring onto her finger. For the first time in years, Martha felt truly cherished and loved. Preparing for a new chapter. As the weeks passed, preparations for the wedding began. Unlike Chioma's lavish party, Martha's wedding plans were simple yet elegant, reflecting her humble and kind nature. The community rallied around her, offering support and contributing to the celebrations. On the morning of the wedding, Martha stood in front of the mirror, dressed in a stunning white gown. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her, a woman transformed by love, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. The sun shone brightly on the morning of Martha's wedding day, casting a golden glow over the village. The air was filled with excitement as guests gathered at the community hall, eager to witness the union of Martha and Dave. It was a moment of joy not just for Martha but for everyone who had watched her journey from suffering to triumph. The wedding ceremony. Martha stood in her room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her gown, a simple yet elegant white dress gifted by one of the village women, fit her perfectly. Her hair was styled in soft curls, and a delicate veil rested atop her head. She looked radiant, her beauty shining from within. Mama Nkechi entered the room, her eyes welling with tears. "Oh, my dear Martha," she said, her voice trembling. You look like a queen. Your mother would be so proud of you. Martha smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you, Mama Nkechi. For everything. The sound of drums and flutes echoed outside, signaling that it was time for the ceremony to begin. Martha took a deep breath and allowed Mama Nkechi to lead her to the venue. As she entered the hall, all eyes turned to her. Gasps of admiration filled the air, and whispers of how beautiful she looked spread through the crowd. Dave stood at the altar, dressed in a sharp black suit with a touch of traditional embroidery. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and he smiled, a look of pure love and pride on his face. The ceremony was a blend of tradition and modernity. Village elders gave blessings, offering kola nuts and prayers for the couple's happiness. The pastor officiated the vows, guiding Dave and Martha through their promises to love, honor, and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. When the pastor declared them husband and wife, Dave lifted Martha's veil and kissed her gently, sealing their bond. The hall erupted in cheers and applause as the couple turned to face the crowd, their smiles brighter than the sun. The celebration. The reception that followed was lively and colorful. Traditional drummers performed energetic rhythms, and dancers entertained the crowd with their vibrant moves. Tables were laden with jollof rice, fried chicken, moi moi, and other delicacies, ensuring that every guest left satisfied. Dave and Martha sat at the high table, surrounded by loved ones. Dave's family, who had traveled from the city, expressed their joy at welcoming Martha into their lives. They praised her humility and strength, assuring her of their unwavering support. Martha couldn't stop smiling as she listened to the speeches and watched the festivities. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. A quiet moment. Later that evening, as the festivities began to wind down, Dave took Martha's hand and led her outside. The night was cool, and the sky was filled with stars. I wanted to steal a moment with you, Dave said, his voice soft. Martha looked up at him, her heart full. Thank you, Dave. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. Dave cupped her face in his hands, his eyes shining with sincerity. You don't have to thank me, Martha. You deserve all the love and happiness in the world. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you have it. Tears filled Martha's eyes as she leaned into his embrace. In that moment, all the pain and hardships of her past seemed like distant memories. A new beginning. A week after the wedding, Dave and Martha moved into their new home, a modest but beautiful house in the city. It was a fresh start for both of them, a chance to build a life filled with love, respect, and mutual support. Martha quickly adapted to her new life, learning new skills and even enrolling in a small business program that Dave encouraged her to pursue. She began to dream again, her ambitions fueled by the confidence Dave instilled in her. Healing and forgiveness. Though Ada and Chioma remained in prison, Martha chose not to dwell on their actions. With Dave's encouragement, she focused on healing and forgiving, understanding that holding on to bitterness would only hinder her growth. One day, she visited Mama Nkechi to express her gratitude. Mama, she said, you were there for me when no one else was. I'll never forget your kindness. Mama Nkechi smiled, patting Martha's hand. You've always been special, my dear. Your strength and goodness have brought you to this point. Keep shining, and never let anyone dim your light. Happily ever after. Years later, Martha and Dave sat on the porch of their home, watching their two young children play in the garden. The laughter of their son and daughter filled the air, a melody of pure joy. Martha rested her head on Dave's shoulder, a contented smile on her face. Do you ever think about how we met? She asked. Dave chuckled. How could I forget? You were holding Chioma's handbag at that party, and I thought, who is this beautiful woman sitting alone? Martha laughed, the sound light and carefree. And now, here we are. Here we are, Dave echoed, kissing her forehead. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over their home, Martha reflected on her journey. She had faced unimaginable hardships, but through it all, she had found love, family, and a future brighter than she ever dreamed possible. Martha's story was no longer one of pain and struggle. It was a testament to resilience, the power of love, and the belief that happiness could be found even in the most unlikely circumstances. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.